welcome in everybody, wherever you are, however you may be listening. This is your Wednesday wrap-up, and of course, my man Herb is with me here today. How's it going, man?
It's a great day, man. It's going to be a great day.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. If I disappear, I'm sorry. It's been a Comcast morning, and anybody watching knows what that means.
Unfortunately.
So, yep. Yeah, man. We've been going through it, but hey, we're here. We're live. So far, so good. So, I mean, the Wednesday wrap up. Obviously, we're talking about a week in review, and we got to head it off with Saleh. Right? He gets fired yesterday. People are making a big deal about him being escorted out, but that is most big companies. Right. It's a security thing. They're like, hey, get your stuff, hand in your keys, we'll walk you out, because there's secure doors you have to go through. Right. So, I mean, I think people are reading a little more into that than they need to. At the same time, this sure feels like a Rodgers situation as opposed to Saleh's not doing his job, because Hackett somehow keeps his job, and that's Rodgers' guy. Right. And the one side of the ball that doesn't work is the offense, right? So, like, if you were going to fire a guy, the offensive coordinator would have made a whole lot more sense than Saleh, who has routinely had a top 5 defense, really since he's gotten there. So, I mean, this is definitely a chemistry thing. People were mad about that thought process, when I laid it out yesterday. But, I mean, I don't see how you can look at this and not think that.
Right. No, 1000%. And then there's other stuff, like you've seen the friction kind of with Saleh and Rodgers at times. Saleh's about to fire Hackett, and then he himself gets fired. That's not good either. So, and yeah, I do think this though about Saleh getting fired. I think for the longest time, the offense and the quarterback has been his excuse, and then he gets a quarterback in there and nothing's any better. So I could see where this was coming. But I would have started with the OC and, gone that direction first before I was just like, the head coach. Because if you're keeping the OC and the offense is the problem, like what's changing with the new head coach, And isn't it the defensive coordinators being elevated? So that doesn't seem to help that side of the ball at all, because, he's going to run the defense still and run the rest of the team, but he's not tweaking the offense,
Exactly.
And the only thing you see is, if all of a sudden this weekend, and I haven't even looked at who they're playing, but if all of a sudden this weekend the offense is much better, are you going to say Saleh was holding them back? Because that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, he's not vetoing play calls, right, in the middle of the game. I just don't see that. So yeah, it definitely seems like would have been a long time coming thing because of how the offense has always been, except for now you got your guy and it's terrible, but your guy keeps his guy. So yeah, none of it.
And if you're looking at the offensive side of the ball, right? So say the offense is why he got fired,
right?
And I'm not advocating for the fact that he should have stayed. I thought he was actually probably going to get fired last year, and then whatever.
That's what I thought, honestly.
But it seems like weird timing in the season to do it. But when you look at the quarterbacks that he's had to play with. Right. He had the last little bit of Darnold, who was clearly broken in New York. You had Zach Wilson. Right. You have Tim Boyle, who is now a 4th option for Miami. So we're not talking.
Is he really an option? Because they won't even put him on the field. They're like, yeah, we're just going to keep.
He was on the field for like 2 minutes in Seattle. Right. So, I mean, anything's possible. But I mean, when he's your 3rd option on the roster and you just go get a different guy, that doesn't say good things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, did you really expect him to win a lot of games with that cast of characters? I mean, now the Zach Wilson thing, you wouldn't have known, right? Like, you're not going to know. You draft a guy, some guys work out, some guys don't. But that's not on Saleh. That's on the GM.
And that's what I was going to ask. Where is he in all of this?
Somehow he is still okay. Because I believe he's the guy that fired Saleh. So, man, I don't know. And I guess they just don't want to talk about the fact that they missed on Wilson and they I believe they missed on a left tackle that year too.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
and have never had a viable replacement like anywhere along the way. Like you get a championship caliber defense, you don't have to have a superstar quarterback. If you get a serviceable guy, you've got a great wide receiver, a great running back. If you get a serviceable guy that can make a couple plays here and there, you'll be fine. But you didn't even get that. You know, your team can lose a game 10-9. I mean, already this year. So it's like, what are we doing here? And if I'm Saleh, I'm more mad that they let me come to work and then fire me. Like that could have been a text message or a phone call. I get up, I get ready to work, I get there, and that's when you made the decision. Come on.
Well, I mean, it sucks for sure, but it actually makes sense because you're like, hey, we need you to bring your playbooks in, and like you need to be.
I'll email it. I'll show you a picture of me burning it.
No,
here you go.
And you're handing in keys and all of that. So I mean, like in a way, I get it. I feel like you could have gave the guy a heads up.
Right.
I mean, even if it was just hey, when you get in, we need to talk. And you're like, okay, we need to talk. We're breaking up. It's cool.
Yeah, basically. We understand the code. It's not code anymore. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was a long time coming, but the timing in the season doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Because you're only week 5, right? You're only one game out in your division. Do you have things to figure out? Sure.
Yeah. In a division that's falling apart, by the way. Like there's time to figure this out. Yeah,
like you're not out of
a free fall all of a sudden. So
and the part you got to fix isn't the part that he is good at coaching, right? Like that's why you hire an offensive coordinator if you are a defensive minded coach, because you know what you're good at, defense.
Exactly. Like that's why I don't get any of this. So what's improving with this? With the defensive head coach taking over, with the same OC being there, got Buffalo coming up in the next game. Like I said, if they're magically good in the next game, are they going to go, oh, this is why they fired Saleh? Because I have more. If they look better this next game, I have more questions. Was Hackett holding back to tank the coach, which doesn't make sense because he didn't get elevated to coach. Like I don't get.
Or is Rodgers or was Rodgers like dislike for Saleh so much that he was just sandbagging until he got fired? Like, I mean, I don't think that's that, but
it's weird though, right?
But at the same time, you can look at it like, I mean, were you just trying to get this dude fired? Like,
doesn't it look like it looks like something is the fact that we can even mention these things and they not sound totally crazy tells you, there's something, to all this. And then they have to come out, oh, Rodgers reportedly had nothing to do with it. Yeah, okay. You're going to tell me he didn't call somebody the night before. And you almost do feel like Hackett got wind that he was going to get fired and everybody had to make moves to make sure that didn't happen. But, none of it makes sense. You fire the defensive guy because the offense is terrible.
Well, I mean, you're firing a guy that, you get wind that they're firing Rodgers' guy. Right. And then you just somehow get him fired before he can do it.
Right.
I mean, come on. And then at the same time, there's no way you could elevate Hackett. You can't fire a guy midseason for a guy that got fired midseason. Like you can't do that. Yeah. So I mean,
I agree.
Like I wanted them to for sheer entertainment value, but there was no way you could justify that to a fan base.
Right.
Because nobody saw anything in Denver that you're just like, that's my guy.
Yeah.
Like, zero chance.
Yeah.
But
so why is he Rodgers' guy? Like I don't get from the Walmart grocery stores. Yeah, Rodgers is very. My other problem with Rodgers, I think, is unless you're a Jets fan, and I don't know how Green Bay fans still feel about him, but he's easily becoming one of the most unlikable NFL players to me. Yeah. His body language when he's out there, he always make it look like everything that happens is somebody else's fault or that he's upset at somebody else other than himself. I think I might have lost Bo for a second. So it's like, and I don't even watch that much of it. I'm way more of a college guy, but it just seems like any play where I'm watching the Jets play, it just seems bad. And it's like, all right, he overthrows this guy and his language is like, oh, why didn't the guy get it still anyway? It's just one of those. I feel like he's the kind of guy that just tries to escape blame no matter what happens, no matter what goes on.
There's no question. Yeah.
So He's just frustrating to watch.
No, I mean Rodgers he's a weird dude, and it seems like he's gotten weirder as he's aged.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and his legacy, I understand the regular season MVPs, but he's like one Super Bowl ahead of Dak, right? If it wasn't for the MVPs, he's had great regular seasons, but would we be looking at him totally different if he had never won a Super Bowl? Because that's kind of what
definitely would.
So,
no, you'd look at him different. I mean, and he could never get past it for a long time. It was the NFC Championship Invitational. That's what it was. Like whoever beat the Packers in that game went to the Super Bowl. Like that, the Packers were going to be there every year, and then, but they weren't going to win it. Right. And it's almost what the Niners are now, right? Like they are in the NFC Championship all the time. They've made a couple of Super Bowls, but they're not going to win. Like you get into the Super Bowl, you're like, oh, we got the Niners, sweet. Like, we're going to win this game. This would be awesome.
Yeah. And that's what I was wondering right there. That was one of my questions for sure. How do Packers still especially with the way he tried to leave and everything?
I think that's the biggest thing. It's the way he left that, it's like Wilson here in Seattle. It's the way you left. Did he bring us a Super Bowl? Sure. Was he into? Absolutely. Did he leave in like a super shady way? Sure. So, if you ask a lot of the Seattle fan base, are they happy to see Wilson struggle? Yeah. Cause they're like, yeah, he did us dirty. The hell with that guy.
Right.
So I feel like a lot of Packers fans are similar in the way of Rodgers. It's like, yeah, we loved you when you were here. You did a lot of good things. You became weird. You left in a weird way. Good riddance.
Yeah. So with the Wilson part of it, I do wonder, do Seattle folks remember the Super Bowl more because I was carried the defense, or do they remember the interception more? And I know from an outside view, I remember the interception more. And it almost feels like Wilson's legacy is going to be carried by that one Super Bowl win, kind of like Rodgers more than anything else. But the interception was way more high profile to me. And it was kind of like, it's almost in my mind, the last pass he threw for Seattle. I know it's not true, but from the outside view, that's the kind of thing you look back and go, okay, Wilson went over there, defense won a championship. He threw a game-losing interception, and then he struggled with the rest of his career. Not fair, I understand, but that's almost how I think of it. And I'm like, if Seattle fans are anywhere close to me, yeah, they're going to have no love for the guy. They're like, you ruined one of our greatest eras of football, and then you left town, So that's like the parallel with Rodgers. You won us one Super Bowl, then you just drug us down the whole way out. You had some of the greatest regular seasons and some of the best. If it wasn't for Dak, there'd probably be more pressure, and the Super Bowl, there'd probably be more pressure on Rodgers. Like, we pile on Dak for having great, what was he, second in the MVP last year and losing the first round? I guess at least Green Bay would make, the conference championship game, but it's still a similar. Yeah. So it's a little bit better as far as that goes, but it's a similar trajectory as far as, I can be the MVP, but we're not winning a Super Bowl,
Yeah. Well, I mean, he just seemed like he was more about him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's me instead of we.
Yeah. It really does. It really, and that's, like I said, outside view. And I can't say, look, am I watching every Rodgers game? No. But when I see him, I look at him and go, I don't like that guy, and it's just a thing. So
no, it's funny because there's always there's no I in team. Right. And then there's but there ain't no we either. But there's a we. And you're just like, okay. And then, depending on the font, there is an I. It's right in the asshole.
Yes. Very true. Oh, that reminds me of those Leon commercials that they had back in the day with, what was that, Budweiser, I think? He was a very selfish running back for a fictional team, and the guy would be out there interviewing and stuff. It's like, so your 4 fumbles didn't contribute to the loss? Not if one of those other guys would have jumped on the ball.
All of a sudden it's Zach Wilson, right?
Yes.
Like exactly his press conferences is like, it's not my fault.
Yeah. So that's what I think of sometimes when I think of Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And if you're watching along, if you see me freezing up nonstop, it's because Comcast sucks a lot, and I've literally had to log back into my Wi-Fi 5 times since we started the show. So if it's low production value, sorry guys. Let me just apologize right now because it's going to happen some more. There's actually a good shot that I end up having to cancel the rest of my day.
Oh, we're hoping not. Wow, Raj coming in hot. Thanks, Raj. It's always appreciated.
Oh, okay. I like he's just throwing you straight under the bus.
I mean, he's driving the bus and yeah, I showed him I randomly got up this morning and said, "Hey, show starts at 8:20 instead of 8." Gotcha. That's why I love him.
It seemed like he would have been on time since it was just the Raj and Raj show that I was promoting last week. Man. So the next weird one is it was just kind of a weird week in sports in general because there's a lot of upsets, and probably the biggest upset I can think of will be Browns fans at Deshaun just straight up giving up on a play mid-game. Right? You got Stefanski.
Yeah, Raj. You didn't this morning. You missed us talking about Salah, Raj, and then Bo's been having internet problems. And then he wanted to load up this clip for everybody to see, but it's basically the Browns have been a disaster. Then you've got Deshaun Watson giving up on a play in the middle of it, in the middle of a disaster of a game. Sorry, Bo. I was like, oh, I know you wanted to finish your thought, but I mean, if you're Deshaun Watson, you can't have a lack of effort on anything because your play has been so. Not that anybody ever deserves a lack of effort, ever, right? Because that's what Cam Newton, right? It feels like. Remember what I say about like what you actually remember about people? More people probably remember him not diving for the fumble, right, than anything else in his career. But you're Deshaun Watson, and you have the worst contract in NFL history.
Yeah,
you can't. There can't be any perceived I don't cares in your game.
No, I mean, there can't be. And even when you think of a guy like Randy Moss, who could potentially go down as one of, is lauded as one of the best receivers ever. What's his knock? He'd take plays off.
Yep.
Right? Like people notice that stuff. So you can't have that, especially in a position where you haven't been good. Right? You also have all of your off the field stuff creating a negative, storyline towards you. You can't then just give up in the middle of the game. And that's another situation where the GM is running the show, right, as opposed to the coach. Because if you look at anything Stefanski has done before, he was going to bench that guy. There's no chance he's like, oh, I mean, okay, hope next drive's better. Like, there's zero chance that's how that was going to go down. So he's clearly getting dictated to on, you're starting this guy. This is our guy because we're paying him insane money for zero production. Right. The thing is do you just want him out there for the sake of having him out there? Or do you want to win games? Because at this point, any backup will perform better than what
Right. And seemingly has as you've gone along. So I guess it's because it's even worse than the Russell Wilson contract with all the dead money and the cap hits. And I think they're probably really up against it because they paid him $1 million for that first year and deferred so much money to the end that they're trying to get some return on his investment. But I put it in like the Russell Wilson category. You're never going to be able to trade Deshaun Watson. You're not going to recoup any value like by throwing him out there. You really, honestly, if he was worth, like on a dollar scale, if he was worth a quarter, you're driving that quarter down somehow because there's no way in the world anybody would give up an asset. Like, what would you trade for Deshaun Watson right now? Maybe a sixth, maybe a seventh, maybe a conditional 7th. Like, I mean, it's not even, that would be the cap. And you're already shaking your head. No, that tells you it's bad. So sending him out there. Yeah.
He's out of the league at this point.
Yeah. So that's how bad it is, like easily, because you didn't even hesitate. You're like, no, don't want any of that, right? So that's how bad it is. But you're in the similar situation as the Jets, is that you have a championship caliber defense. You know, I know that their road splits aren't always the best, but they have that kind of opportunity. You've invested enough in offensive pieces to be viable. Probably have more pieces than the Jets, honestly, as far as what you've gone and what you've tried to do. Yeah. No matter what you think of Judy, that is a number one, you know, former number one wide receiver that you're trying to give a chance out there. Cooper has been good. Joku's been good at tight end. You've invested in the running back position. Like, you are making attempts on offense. So you don't need the offense to be great most times, but you just need them to sustain some drives every once in a while. So like you said kind of earlier, backup quarterback would be fine. So are you trying to win right now, or are you trying to recruit Watson's value? Because his value's gone. That experiment needs to end.
Yeah, I mean, so this is the current layout, right? So they traded away 5 picks, 3 first rounders, right? They gave him a 5-year, $230 million fully guaranteed contract, right? Which is already insane.
Yes.
But whatever.
So insane that the rest of the owners got together and said that's never happening again.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll give him 1 second, but yeah. And I think what the next thing you're going to say is with the 5-year, the guarantee, they only paid him $1 million in that first year, right? So the rest of that 230 is pushed into the other 4. That's why the cap hits end up being so big. That's why the dead cap hits, even if they got rid of them.
Dramatic pause right there, huh? But you know, so if they were to shut it down today, it would be $172 million cap hit.
Right.
So like I get it in a way, but at the same time, you're now wasting everyone else on this roster.
Right.
Because it's not like they're getting younger. So you have a guy as a backup that isn't great, but it's going to be better than this.
Right.
I mean,
it would be hard to be worse.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, so like why I was shaking my head emphatically immediately is you get all of his off the field baggage, right? You get a contract that, like, what are you going to do with that? I mean, you're paying crazy money for Tim Boyle type performances, right? Like you're like any quarterback in the league can go 45% completion for 130 yards. Like everyone can do that. I'm pretty sure there's skill players that could do that. So just none of it makes sense realistically once he's done with the Browns or the Browns are done with him. Like, he's done in the league. Nobody's even taken a flyer on this because the only thing he has is bad tape. He had one really good game last year and he got hurt in it.
Yeah.
You know, the rest of that year was either below average or, you know, before his good game was kind of average, right? It was just like, it was okay gameplay. But then when you look at the roster, you shouldn't have okay gameplay. Like, this is a roster, especially last year, that was good enough to win the division they were in.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't make a ton of sense
at all. And you're looking at what they've done this year with him out there. They're 1-4. Their one win is against Jacksonville, which, you know, what does that tell you already? His high passing for the year, 196 yards. This is what you're paying $230 million for? 196 yards. And I understand, you know, Dallas, we've seen with their defense. Jacksonville's been okay. But you play the Giants, the Raiders, and Washington. You threw it for 125 yards against Washington, who is not a juggernaut on defense by any means, you know. And I'm looking at the receptions. It's been, you know, Njoku had 44 yards. That was your leading receiver in the first game. That's crazy. But then, you know, Judy Cooper. So your wide receivers are out there, you know. And I'm not saying they're all world. Obviously, I'm biased because they're Bama guys. But that's not a bad combination. That's good enough for you to get production out of them there if your quarterback is getting anything done. And for $230 million, I don't care which defenses you are playing. Like I just said, I don't think those are great defenses. And I don't care if you play the Jets and your own defense 5 times. For 230, like I need elite pay, you know. If I'm paying you like the 1 million that Russell Wilson's getting, then yeah, okay, you know, we'll get what we get. But for 230, yeah, you know.
I sure as hell can't see you just like storm off the field on a 4th and 1 and then give us a delay of game because you just walk off the field, take your helmet off, and make us kick a field goal in a game that we're getting smoked, right? Yeah. But it's not like this was the last 2 minutes where you're frustrated, whatever. This is the third quarter. So, like, there's still time to try and mount a comeback, and it's not like we haven't seen that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it's
embarrassing.
I don't know. Like, if you give up on a play, to me, you're warming the bench, right? Like, we're paying you the money either way. You're hurting our team. You know, morale has to be at an all-time low watching their leader do that, right? Because if you're the other guys on the field, you're just like, okay, well, I mean, I guess we're not playing anymore today. Like, you know.
And I'm actually reading somebody's explanation. And so, like, because I hadn't watched this, you can tell me if this is way off or what they're saying. So the person said, this is what happened. Watson realized too many players on the field in the huddle. You will see Cooper counting them as well. Watson knew they were not burning a second timeout. He's frustrated. Kevin is too. Walks over to the assistant coaches to say stuff. And so that's what they say happened on the play. I don't know if you caught it.
You want to read that again to me?
Yeah. All right. So this person said, this is what happened. Watson realized that they had too many players on the field in the huddle. He said, you see Cooper counting him as well. Watson knew they were not burning a second timeout. He's frustrated. Kevin is too. Walks over to assistant coaches to say something. Gross stuff all around is what explanation they gave for the play.
I mean, in a game that you're getting annihilated.
Yeah, because it's 24-3 at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you burn the timeout. What are you going to use it for later?
Yeah.
I mean, you needed that first down.
Yeah.
Kicking a field goal there doesn't make any sense when you're down when you're down 3+ scores.
Yeah.
Yeah, you needed that 4th and 1. So that's where you burn that timeout. But when you got your quarterback coming over and just taking his helmet off, mentally, you're not going for that 4th down anymore. Yeah. Like it's a wrap. Like there's zero chance you're getting him back engaged for that play. Yeah. So,
can I also say the bigger issue is that it's the third quarter and you're playing Washington and you only have 3 points. Like, to me, that's the bigger thing when I look at it. What are you doing out there? You know, as we said, Washington has not been a juggernaut on defense, and now they held down the Cardinals team, you know, that I thought would score a bunch of points on them. So they have been well in times, but Cleveland has too many weapons and they're paying him too much money to have performances like that. And then you end with a sequence like that where you can't get anything right and your quarterback's just like, eh. So this is a bad look all the way around.
That's the thing. Like, I would get it if he was frustrated, but he just looked disinterested.
Right.
He's just like, whatever, I'm done. I mean, you're not going to win a lot of games that way. Like, potentially, I mean, they're potentially going to be bad enough this year with a roster that makes absolutely no sense.
To be that bad, yes. To get like a high draft pick and be able to draft his replacement. Which also kind of begs the question for Cleveland, what about Jameis Winston? Like, I know that's not the greatest of names. It's a very, very boom or bust. You know, Jameis is either going to throw you a touchdown and throw you an interception on any given drive. But at least he's pushing the ball downfield. And I feel like at this point, I'm mentioning Jameis Winston because he's on the second on next on the depth chart. Like, I understand it's not the best of names, you know, interception or touchdown like every drive. But at this point, would you take that over punt every drive?
So unless they have just resigned to the fact that they're getting a quarterback this year.
Right. And that's where you were going with that one, huh?
Yeah, because they're playing bad enough that they actually have a shot at one of the top 3 quarterbacks because they potentially will be one of the worst 3 teams in the league because of just how bad their play is. Yeah. And when you look at the roster, it doesn't make any sense. You look at that roster and you're like, oh, they must be winning games. And then you watch them play and you're like, have they ever played football? Like,
no. Well, it's like I remember mentioning to you, Cooper had a drop or two in the first game, and you were like, yeah, but if you never ever get the ball thrown to you, the one time it does, it's just kind of like unexpected. So you're poor. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the reason why it won't on the other one, sorry, I don't know if you want to, but the off the field problems, they inherited a lot of them, and then the new ones they keep, like this last one disappeared fast. They just swept it under the rug to where nobody gets to see anything.
We haven't heard anything, right? Because there was supposed to be video presented to the
No. They closed it. They came to an agreement. That one is done.
Really?
Yeah. That's why you didn't hear anything. It is that one has been settled. So I want to say it was the last day or two. Yeah. With nothing.
Okay.
That's why I'm saying, like, that's why they got out of that one very, very quickly. Like, you're correct. They were having meetings. They were supposed to have video all of a sudden. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, it was a blurb that either popped up on ESPN or whatever, but all of a sudden the case was just done and everybody was happy. Which, by the way, it just makes it look more like it was about the money than like getting any kind of justice for him. And I think that's what kind of hurts the cause overall. But for Watson's case, that's why he'll be able to stay on the field because they swept that one under the rug. And then they abandoned him in the game. Yeah. So
I mean, to be fair though, I think they could still void it if they wanted to, because his contract only had to do with the ones that had come forward already.
Right.
So any subsequent people that came forward after the fact potentially could fall into that detrimental to the team category, which would allow them to void a contract.
Right.
Now,
I think the problem with that though is because we didn't get any details and they just closed it and everybody's under silent. Yeah, they settle. You don't get the details, so there's nothing to really kind of act on. We might know what we read before then, but technically the way this works, we don't know anything. So I think that's how he's getting around.
Well, and we don't, right? Like all we heard was that there was video, and so we don't know what the video looked like or anything like that.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, it would be tough to. It'd be tough to prove that, and of course, he has 175 million reasons to fight back if they did try to do it. So,
yeah, it was a day. It was like yesterday. It was a lawsuit against Browns Watson's been resolved. So
okay, yeah, and it's a good thing Herb is here because Comcast is the worst, and I have literally logged back into this show while we've been live at least 20 times. Man, yeah. If there was ever a stream that would make you want to start drinking, this is that one, and it's pretty early here on the West Coast.
That's what I was gonna say. You still got a lot to do today, man. That last show, your shirt's gonna be off, your headphones gonna be to the side. I'm like, hey guys.
Yeah, I'd just be sitting here like.
Oh, and his internet goes drunk again. So, yeah, Bo's got a big day. I think he said like 7 shows, either 7 shows or 7 hours, or maybe 7 shows in 7 hours. So he's got a long day coming up. So I hate that his morning is starting off like this. And I know any minute now he's going to start throwing something. So, but I guess just to finish up with the you good there, man?
Man. Wow. I had good plans for this show.
Well, some things you can't fight, man. Some things you can't fight. I feel bad for the rest of the Browns players if this is what they have to go through, though, for the rest of the year. And the schedule's they haven't even got into their own division yet, which is going to be tough. But you got Philly, Cincy, Baltimore, and the Chargers coming up. Like, Philly's defense has been able to been taken advantage of this year, but not by Watson, I would think so, right? And if you can't take care of Philly or Cincinnati's defense, like you're just not scoring this year. Like that's a wrap.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like to your point there, do they even win another game, or does his offensive line start to give up? Right? They're like, oh, I missed a block.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like you should run more.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Like I love Judy, but it seemed like the effort level wasn't always there in Denver. Is it going to
Sure.
continue in Cleveland where you don't think you're always getting the ball? And you know how it is. Wide receivers, I'm running hard. All right, it's third quarter. I've got one target, or I guess 4 targets. One came near me, 3 were overthrown, or one landed on my foot. I don't know if I'm running as hard in the third quarter, as I was in the first quarter, just because it kind of seems pointless at times. So
Well, especially if you're down 25.
yeah,
You're just like, yeah, I feel like today's kind of over.
yeah,
I'm already kind of tired. So maybe I don't care that much. And rightfully so, right? Because it's not like he's delivering
anything amazing, right? Exactly. And you look at, like I said, with their schedule: Philly, Cincy, Baltimore, Chargers before your bye, the Saints, Pittsburgh, Denver, who's like actually a little more feisty these days, Mercier, Pittsburgh. Like, which team? So Raj will hate this. They play Miami in week 17. Who knows what any team looks like at that point? But would you pick them to beat Miami right now without Tua versus, potentially having whatever they have at quarterback at that point? Like, there is no, I'm definitely picking them game left on this schedule, And like I said, that's still Cincy twice, Baltimore twice, Pittsburgh twice. Like, you're telling me they're going to score on, at will on Pittsburgh? That's not happening.
No, that is definitely not happening. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Well, that's why I said, like, do they even win another game at this point? I mean, it looks so dysfunctional there. It is absolutely wild.
Yeah.
It's funny. I don't know if I've dropped more F-bombs this early in the morning in a long time. And I worked in construction and automotive. And I use that as a connecting word, like and the.
Yes. Yes. Having been around several construction people, yep, that's just how they talk. You can't take offense to the F word in construction because that is actually like in the handbook. Like,
yeah, no,
it's how you're taught.
It's just a standard connecting word. Like it just flows. It's fine. The fact that I don't do it on screen very often is amazing. But man, it's been a lot of them as I watch my little Wi-Fi logo turn into a globe, meaning I'm no longer connected. Man. So, in theory, we'll get this topic out. Derrick Henry off to a great start. He's leading the league in rushing, which is amazing when you think of the first 2 games of the season. They didn't use him at all.
No.
So, between the 2 games, I think he had roughly 32 carries.
Yes. I remember the Kansas City one. It was like they dropped off because I remember a poster on Twitter of all things talking about his lack of carries. And then, of course, Lamar getting most of them. The guy's like, oh, Derrick Henry better be ready for this. And I'm just thinking to myself, why go out and get a weapon like Derrick Henry and still run your quarterback as much as you're running your quarterback? Like, that makes no sense to me. So I don't know, but I mean, does it tell you more about the coaching staff at times with Baltimore than the personnel with the way things are run?
Well, it definitely does now, because now you have the best running back option that they've had in years, and you're still not trusting your running back to carry the load. And so that's what doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Like if you're now, I don't know how much of that is coaching, or is it Lamar calling his own number, right? Because I mean,
True.
Quarterbacks will do that. So I mean, you can't blame it all on Harbaugh, but at the same time, you're coaching him to do that, right? So like, if he's calling his own number, there's a reason, and in that scenario, that is coaching.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that the coaching is like, hey, go run and try and die out there. But it could be like, oh, you have free reign to audible into this. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, that's fine, except like you have one of the biggest, fastest dudes on the field.
Yes.
And Lamar may be faster, but Derrick Henry has like a foot on him.
Yes. yes. And is built for that. That's what you send. Like I wanted Lamar, I was like, go talk to RG3. and think about all these extra hits and all this, and think about the rest of your career. You know, it's not about now when you're in your prime and it's great, man. How long do you want this to last? And then, like, to your other point, 13 carries, 18 carries in the first 2 games, both losses. And then we go 25, 24. And I imagine the 15 against Cincy is because they felt like they were in a shootout and had to keep going. But at least the passing game came along a little bit. But he's also scored in every game. The first game he had a long of 9, and all of a sudden it's 29, 29, 87, 51. Like, he's capable of the volume, and he's also capable of the home run at times too. Like, this is a guy you just got to get the ball. And then I go back to this because on another show we had, like, what was their best decision in the offseason? You don't go get Derrick Henry to not use him. Period.
Exactly.
You know, and I remember, you know, in the other games with the other running backs, maybe you're not running them as much, but now you went and got a big name. You can't just not use them. You know, maybe you could ignore the other guys. You can't ignore Derrick Henry. Period.
No, I mean, it's wild that they started the year the way they did, not using him. I mean, they're using him now, but even still, when you look at his touches, like, the yardage has been awesome. Yeah. But when you look at his touches, you're like, you still feel like they're leaving meat on the bone here. Definitely. Like, they're relying on the passing, and not to say Lamar is a bad passer, because he's not. Like, he's actually fairly efficient as a passer. Like, that's one of the elements of his game that has gotten better every year.
Agreed.
But at the same time, if you got a guy that's just running people over, and this is something that I was saying last year, is you're going to see the big back return to the NFL because all of these linebackers have gotten smaller to cover routes, right? Because it's become such a pass-happy league. So you're going to see some of these bigger backs have success because guys can't tackle them. And then they changed rules this last offseason where you can't hip drop. So if you're a corner coming up from behind, you can't even do the one way you used to be able to tackle big guys.
Right.
You know? Yeah. So, I mean, you're going to see these big backs have success. So the fact that they're not using him the way they should, I mean, there's no reason that I can think of in today's NFL that you don't give Derrick Henry at least 25 carries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, there's just no scenario, because even the best defenses out there aren't going to be able to stop him all day.
No.
Like, they may be able to stop him early, and as long.
And where he's going with that, like, that's always been one of my things about Derrick Henry. They like to look at his yards per carry. And I'm like, yeah, because I imagine this first quarter one when everyone is fresh, and the second one when they're keying on him, you know, yeah, maybe they're slowing him down. Third quarter, fourth quarter, when he is still great, and the defense is like, you know what, hit Derrick Henry twice. I think I'm good on this one. The third time, maybe I whiff a little bit instead of getting a clean tackle on him. You know, it's just he's a volume guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And can I say that I wouldn't make the same? Yeah, like I remember watching a little YouTube thing where the guy was like, asked his friend, he's like, would you rather get hit by Ray Lewis or have to tackle Derrick Henry? He was like, oh, tackle Derrick Henry. Yeah, I'm laying a pop on him. I was like, you guys don't understand, but that's fine. I would pick tackle Derrick Henry, but I would be the guy to whiff. Like, Herb, that's 10 times you've tried to tackle him. You whiffed every time. Like, that's not what the challenge was for. I'm like, you know.
No. See, I would take Derrick Henry too, but I'm not squaring up on a guy like that. I mean, so in my football career, I did that one time. I had a fullback come out, right? And he was, I want to say he was the starting fullback for Portland State, right? So he was like 255 and ran a 4.5, and I was a $185 and ran a 4.3, and we met at the corner, both going full speed. And I'm like, here we go. And I square up on this guy. I broke my face mask.
Ooh.
You know how I tackled him the rest of the day? Yeah, I took them legs out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I got up after they hit and I was like, you know, that actually did not feel good.
Despite what it might look like, I am not well right now.
Yeah. Right? And we didn't have any concussion protocols. Probably should have had one there. But yeah, I mean, like we were both going full speed, meeting at the corner, and you know, and I didn't even get a good tackle on him, right? Like he tripped over me because dude had 60.
Yeah. That would absolutely be me, by the way. There's no way that I'm going up high on anyone. It's certainly not Derrick Henry. Or because it's either I'm getting smacked or I'm getting the stiff arm and I'm on somebody's highlight reel all of a sudden. So no, neither one of those is going to work out very well. But that's the whole point of getting Derrick Henry is to run him like that. So, and I think Baltimore is still somehow figuring it out, though.
Yeah. So this right here is how a modern day Joker becomes a villain.
We'll know it's you though because it will only be about Comcast. Like that's the 5th Comcast truck that got hit this week. I wonder
Right.
who it could be.
why are all these Xfinity buildings on fire? This is crazy.
I know. Did you hear he moved an AT&T truck out of the way to get to Xfinity? Round up the suspects.
This is a painful experience. Hey, but I appreciate everybody that's hanging on for this. There's only roughly 60 people watching this meltdown.
They're just showing you love, though. They're just showing you love.
I appreciate it. On the plus side, there's only 6 shows to go, and it'll wrap up. Let's see, we start at 6 a.m. and I will wrap up at 9 p.m. today. So at least there's a whole lot of day left.
Yes. Let's see, 13th.
But there might be margaritas at lunch. Like, I don't
know. Margaritas at lunch. Margaritas on the air. Margaritas at lunch on the air.
Hey, you know?
Sounds like a good show to me.
That's that 5 o'clock somewhere action right there. That's, you know, I'm pretty sure it's that almost that in the UK already. Let's go. Man. No, it's not even that there, I don't think, because they're only 8 hours ahead of us. So that'd be like 2. So, you know, day drinking. Hey.
There he goes. Raj, I'm gonna grab your question real quick while we're talking about day drinking. Drake May getting his first start against Houston. It came a little earlier than I thought. I really thought they were gonna try and get through the season from out there, but Brissett has looked bad. I don't think the defense has looked bad. You know, I mean, they gave up 30 to the 49ers, but I feel like there was a lot of opportunities left out there and some fumbles and stuff. But you just look at the rest of it; they're just not getting any offensive production now. Do you want to really start him against the Texans? I guess, you know, defense has been all right, maybe not great. So maybe that's a chance because my fear is always getting a guy out there and ruin his confidence early. But I guess New England's kind of looking at it with the Jets haven't been playing well. Miami hasn't been playing well. You get a little bit of something, you would have had a chance to be maybe even second in division. Maybe that's important to them, or maybe it's just the reps. I thought they would at least get to the bye before they made some decisions. But, yeah, because that is coming up this weekend. So I don't know. I thought it's earlier than what I thought once they decided Brissett was starting. And I don't know what they thought they were going to see about him. Jacoby's never been great at any period of time, and they don't have great offensive weapons. So I feel like it would have been better to just continue to tank this season, get a high draft pick, and get him something out there that he can actually throw to before I would have worried about getting him starting.
Well, and address some of the offensive line, right? Like he's gonna get out there and get beat up.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to do is adjust to the speed of the NFL and run for your life. Yeah. You know, with a veteran like Brissett, he at least knows how to move around in a way that he isn't getting just crushed constantly. You get a rookie out there who has to get used to the speed of the NFL. I mean, he's going to look like Daniel Jones last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's 5 to 10 sacks a game.
Yeah. So no offensive line. Your wide receiver core is what? Jalen Polk, Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas. That doesn't exactly strike fear. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm reading these names going, Bo's going to know these people because I'm like, I've heard of one of them, but none of these makes you think, yeah, that's a lot. You know, you're pretty much trying to throw to Hunter Henry out there, I think, 30 times a game. Your line's not good. Your best running back has a fumbling problem. It's not a good offense for you to get thrown into, and then against a division leader like Houston. That's not where I'd want his first start to be.
Yeah,
so
I
like
mean,
I said,
none of those guys are striking fear in a defense.
No, at all. So I don't. It's a curious decision. I don't know what they're trying to jumpstart because they're at a position where, like, trying to compete in the division or trying to get second in the division. Second in the division for them is not making the playoffs. You're already 1-3, 1-4. So it's not really getting you anything if all of a sudden you try to start winning. And this is it's just not a good position for him. I'd rather have the high draft pick, to be honest, and start addressing some of these other things.
Well, the thing is, I just don't think they win even doing the shift. So maybe they're just trying to get him some reps is all I can figure. But
are bad reps good reps?
No, they're not. They're not.
Yeah.
They can ruin your quarterback.
Right.
All of a sudden, they're early Sam Darnold seeing ghosts, right? Like if you're just out there getting absolutely pummeled, that doesn't help your guy get used to the NFL.
Right.
All that potentially does is ruin a guy for the NFL.
Right. And just like every other year, you've already drafted your quarterback. So let's say you end up with a top 3, top 4 pick and teams are chasing like certain high ones. You can either, draft a wide receiver, draft a tackle, or do what the Patriots always do, trade that pick back, grab a couple more picks. The wide receiver, I don't know how they've never grabbed a wide receiver because the wide receiver depth every single year now is huge. So you should be able to grab an offensive lineman and still grab a decent wide receiver this year. So I mean, that's fine. Look, your defense is fine. Can we stop drafting them and punters and kickers and, actually address stuff that'll help out your quarterback?
I mean, since Belichick's not there, you're probably not going to end up with 5
punters or 5 guards, which one? But it would just be nice if they tried to help out their investment, because it's and a lot of us are going to say, because we were Bama guys and Mac Jones guys, they never gave him a chance. Now, is some of it Mac's fault? Of course, but New England never gave him a shot. And it's like, is Drake May about to go through the Mac Jones experience where you never have any offensive weapons and you're relying on your defense and you're like, he's just not getting it done. Done with what? You have to at least have one guy who you're like, this is a number 1 Pro Bowl, number 1 receiver for your team out there. Like, he's not Tom Brady. Like, he's just going to throw to anybody you throw out there. So,
well, see, that's the biggest thing with the Patriots is they never, outside of Moss, right? They never really got that number 1 guy. What they got was a bunch of possession receivers. Right. Guys that could get open. They weren't exactly tearing the top off of defense. They're the Edelmans and the Amendolas and like Welkers, like that. That's the kind of guys that they liked. And only because it worked well with Brady.
Right.
But as fast as everybody is now, it's hard to win that way.
Yeah.
It worked in the era that it worked in, but now speed is, speed kills, right? Yeah. Which is why you see Miami have every fast player ever. Right. And, and they're like, you know what? We don't even need defense. We're just going to track meet and hope we score more points. Easier to do with a quarterback, obviously, but you can at least see what they were trying to do.
Right.
If you're doing possession style, your defense better be awesome.
Right.
Because you're not going to be able to go 3 plays and score the way a Miami can, or, like Seattle with DK, like they can go over the top, or Justin Jefferson, right? You don't have that guy, and they routinely don't go get that guy. And the one time the Patriots did, they didn't win anything anyway. Is the only part of that era that they didn't win Super Bowls.
which was funny. But to your point also, to even further that, guys don't learn that way coming up either. There is no total possession teams in college. They're not really doing it in high school. So what you're asking a guy is to ignore everything that he did in college and throwing the deep ball and having speed guys, and all of a sudden come to a team where it's nothing but possession. And, oh, yeah, we want you to keep up with that and try and win games. That's just not going to happen, because he's like looking 20 yards down the field and all his receivers are right there. And he's like, Yeah, no, I don't know what's going on anymore. We're not going to stretch the defense out at all. Nah, not going to. We're not giving you
Yeah,
a
you're just
name.
like, go.
Exactly. You know, so they
Yeah,
scored a lot
no,
of points in North
it's like
Carolina.
when it's like when you were playing in the backyard and everybody ran to the same spot on the field. You're like, what do you do?
Yes,
Like get
spread.
out there. This isn't flyers up. Like, try and get open.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's man. Well, I guess before this thing locks up on me again, let everybody know where they can find you.
All right. Herb and Raj, you see Raj out there giving me a hard time. We're the Herb and Raj podcast on YouTube. You can see all our videos there. Our live show is Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Central Time. If you want to check our replay from last night, you can see us whining and crying about our team from this past weekend. And me in an interesting outfit. You also see us on Twitter at Raj_Herb, where you see we post everything out there and post during the week. So catch us both places.
And if you somehow hung with us this entire time, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps us bring our stuff. Hopefully, it'll bring Xfinity with some better equipment because, wow, we didn't talk about baseball, but pretty much want to hit this router with a bat. And other than that, if you're watching on Roku, stay tuned for the next hour. See you in a couple hours. Maybe.